Japan has no army, or so the world believes, but right now, hidden behind a name carefully chosen to avoid every post-war treaty, 247,000 men and women wake up before sunrise, strap on gear worth more than most people's cars, and train for a war they are legally forbidden from starting. They are not called soldiers. They are called self-defense force members. And that single word, defense, changes absolutely everything about who they are, how they fight, and what their lives look like from the very first day. Level 1. The candidate. Jietai. In Kohose, you are 18 years old, maybe 22. You walked into a self-defense force recruitment office on a Tuesday afternoon in Osaka, or Sapporo, or Fukuoka. Nobody drafted you. Nobody knocked on your door. You chose this. And that choice alone makes you fundamentally different from almost every other soldier in Asia. Japan's constitution, Article 9, renounces war as a sovereign right of the nation. Written in 1947 under American occupation, it remains in force today. What exists instead is the Japan Self-Defense Force, the JSDF. It was established in 1954. Officially, it is not a military. Unofficially, it is the 9th most powerful military force on the planet, equipped with destroyers, F-35 stealth fighters, amphibious assault ships, and one of the most advanced cyber defense units in the world. You knew none of that when you signed the paperwork. What you knew was this: steady pay, housing, free meals, and a career in a country where youth unemployment quietly eats at people who graduate without connections or direction. The recruiter was polite. The brochure was clean. The entrance exam was rigorous but fair. You passed. You arrive at a training camp. Osaka, Kenabara, Ojima. The air smells like cut grass and diesel. A sergeant is already shouting your name before you have finished setting down your bag. Your training lasts 3 months. Not 10 years. 3 months. This is the first surprise. Meals are hot. Portions are adequate. The barracks are heated. You sleep on a real bed. You receive a salary beginning on day 1. You will earn around 170,000 yen per month as a candidate, roughly $1,100 before allowances. By the end of week 1, you are already asking yourself one thing: why didn't I do this sooner? Level 2. The private. Nito Rikushi. You have completed basic training. You are now the lowest ranked uniformed member of the Japan Ground Self-Defense Force. Private second. Class. Nitu Rikushi. You have been assigned to a unit, a regiment, a base. And this is where the real education begins. The JSDF does not train for offense. Every doctrine, every field manual, every exercise scenario is constructed around one concept: to repel an invasion of Japanese territory. You train to slow an enemy advance, to hold a beach, to protect a civilian evacuation corridor. The psychology of this is stranger than you expected. You are trained to be excellent at something you are legally constrained to initiate. You learn the art of restraint with the tools of destruction. Your first field exercise is at night. You cross a river in full kit, water rising past your waist, carrying a radio set that weighs 11 kilograms. You say nothing because the soldier beside you is also saying nothing, and you are both too cold and too focused to waste breath on complaints. You think about quitting. Most people think about quitting somewhere in week 2 of field training. You don't quit, though. Not because you are unusually brave, because there is something that happens when your body reaches the edge of what it thought was its limit and discovers there is more room beyond it. That discovery is uncomfortable. And then, unexpectedly, it is liberating. Your sergeant is not permitted to strike you. This is not the KPA. This is not even the old Imperial Japanese Army. You file grievances through a formal process. You have legal protections. You have a union-adjacent representative body. The JSDF has strict regulations on the treatment of junior enlisted personnel. This does not mean your sergeant is gentle. There is a very wide space between striking someone and breaking them without touching them, and your sergeant has mapped every centimeter of that space. Level 3. Private First Class to Lance Corporal. Rakushicho. 1 year has passed. 2. You are promoted. Your collar insignia changes. You are now responsible for soldiers newer than you. This is the JSDF's first test of who you actually are. Japan is an aging society. Its birth rate has fallen below replacement level. The JSDF recruitment base is shrinking every year. In 2023, the Ground Self-Defense Force missed its recruitment target by over 30%. The units that trained you are now shorter of people than they were when you arrived. This means you, at year 2, are already being treated as experienced. You train more now. The JSDF has dramatically expanded its exercise calendar since 2015, when Japan reinterpreted its constitution to allow collective self-defense, meaning Japanese forces can now fight alongside allies even if Japan itself is not directly attacked. This was not a small change. This was arguably the most significant shift in Japanese military doctrine since 1947. You go on your first bilateral exercise with the United States Marine Corps. You are surprised by the Americans, not because they are better than you, because they are louder than you. They laugh during breaks that your unit spends in silence sharpening techniques. You try to understand if the laughter is laziness or confidence, and by the end of the second week, you suspect it is both, and you quietly respect it while saying nothing to anyone. You fly to Guam for a regional exercise. You look out the window of the C-2 transport aircraft and watch the Philippine Sea pass below you. Japan is small from up here. The ocean surrounding it is enormous, and you feel for the first time the full weight of what self-defense actually means when the thing you are defending is an island chain with no room to retreat. Level 4. The non-commissioned officer. Rikuso. 4 years. 6 years. You are a sergeant now. 3 classes of NCO exist below the warrant officer rank. You move through them as years pass and evaluations are filed and command authority accumulates in your hands like slow collected weight. You run a section. You are responsible for the high-end physical fitness, the technical proficiency, and the personal welfare of the soldiers beneath you. In the JSDF, welfare is not a soft word. Psychological support for service members has been formalized since a series of high-profile suicides inside the force prompted institutional review. You are trained to notice when someone in your section is not sleeping, not eating, pulling away from the group. You are, in many ways, not just a military supervisor. You are a human resources manager in boots. Japan's strategic situation has become more complex every year you have served. China has launched the world's largest naval expansion in modern history. North Korea has conducted ballistic missile tests that flew over Japanese territory. Russia's invasion of Ukraine reshaped how every democracy on Earth thinks about what territorial defense actually requires. Japan's defense budget, once capped by political consensus at 1% of GDP, is being doubled to 2% by 2027. The JSDF is being enlarged, re-equipped, and remissioned at a pace that no one who entered the force a decade ago expected. You feel this in the tempo. More exercises, more deployments, more equipment arriving at the depot than the maintenance schedules were built to absorb. The JSDF is growing faster than its systems can keep up with, and you, as an NCO, are the person standing in the gap between policy and reality. It is not comfortable, but it is never boring. Level 5. The Warrant Officer, Junai Kuai. You are no longer enlisted. You are not yet commissioned. You are the Warrant Officer, the Juna Kuiyai, the category of rank that most civilian observers do not know exists in the JSDF, and that most junior officers privately wish did not exist because you know more than they do about almost everything. Your expertise is technical and institutional. You have spent enough years in this force to remember things that field manuals no longer mention. You are the organizational memory. The person who knows which piece of equipment breaks in rain and which maintenance procedure the manufacturer's manual quietly omits. Junior officers rotate every 2 years by policy design. You do not. You are the continuity. You watch the lieutenants arrive with their academy training and their clean opinions, and you say nothing until the third day, and then you very politely explain the 7 things that the academy training did not tell them. They usually listen. The ones who do not are typically reassigned within 18 months. You have been deployed to 2 UN peacekeeping missions. South Sudan, the Golan Heights. The JSDF has been a consistent contributor to peacekeeping operations since 1992. These deployments are not combat missions by legal definition, but the countries you deploy to do not know the difference between a legal definition and an incoming mortar round. You file reports that describe conditions accurately. This is not universally appreciated. Level 6. The Junior Officer. Rikui. You graduated from the National Defense Academy in Yokosuka, or from a University Officer Candidate course, or through the cadet program. You are a lieutenant, 3rd class, then 2nd, then 1st. The National Defense Academy is not like other universities. Uniforms every day. Physical training every morning at 0600. Academic curriculum that combines engineering, political science, and operational planning. The graduation ceremony is attended by the Prime Minister. You have studied the Senkaku Islands dispute until you can describe every relevant UN Convention on the Law of the Sea article from memory. You have war-gamed amphibious invasion scenarios against a peer adversary. You have spent 3 weeks studying the operational history of the 1904 Russo-Japanese War, and another 3 weeks studying why the Imperial Army's overextension in China between 1937 and 1945 produced strategic outcomes that no tactical success could compensate for. The JSDF trains its officers to understand failure deeply, because Japan has the most catastrophic recent example in modern military history of what happens when a military operates outside legitimate political and strategic constraint. This shapes you. The institution selects for officers who understand that the purpose of force is the avoidance of its use. You find this simultaneously obvious and strangely profound. The way a surgeon understands that every successful operation is one that the patient survived. You lead a platoon, 30 soldiers. You are 23 years old. Your platoon sergeant was in the force before you were in high school. He treats you with formal courtesy. You are grateful for it and quietly terrified of losing it. Level 7. The Captain. Itto Rikui. You command a company, 150 to 200 personnel. You are the last rank where you know every soldier's name, their personal situation, their family. Above this level, command becomes management. Here it is, still human. In 2011, the Great East Japan earthquake struck. The tsunami killed over 15,000 people. The JSDF deployed 107,000 personnel in the largest domestic disaster relief operation in its history. They worked alongside civilians in the rubble. They carried people out of collapsed buildings. They delivered food to communities cut off by debris. They worked for weeks without adequate rest. The Japanese public's approval of the JSDF, which had historically been complicated by post-war ambivalence about military institutions, shifted dramatically after 2011. The force that the Constitution treats as legally awkward became, to ordinary Japanese people, the entity that showed up when everything else stopped working. You carry that history in your rank. The JSDF does not only prepare to fight, it trains for earthquakes, for tsunamis, for nuclear plant emergencies, for disease response. The same company you command for warfighting scenarios is the same company you will deploy to dig someone's family out of a collapsed house at 2 a.m. in February. This dual identity is not a contradiction. It is, you have come to believe, the clearest expression of what self-defense actually means. Defense of the nation includes defense of the people in it, even from the disasters that no enemy launches. Level 8. The Field Grade Officer. Rakusa. You are a major, then a lieutenant colonel, then a colonel. The Japanese rank is Rakusa. 3 classes, distinguished by the gold braid on your shoulder boards. You attend the Command and Staff College. You spend a year studying military theory, operational planning, joint doctrine, alliance management. You are sent on an exchange program to the United States Army War College in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. You spend a year in America, attending seminars where American officers debate strategy with a directness that requires adjustment. Americans argue with their superiors in classrooms, loudly, with hand gestures. You observe this for 3 weeks before you understand that this is not disrespect. It is a methodology. You bring something back from Carlisle that does not appear in any after-action report. A slightly different relationship with disagreement. You disagree more carefully than the Americans, in appropriate contexts, with proper framing. But you disagree. As a colonel, you command a regiment, 2,000 to 3,000 soldiers. You submit readiness reports. Unlike certain other militaries in the region, you are institutionally expected to report accurately. The JSDF's civilian oversight structure, its relationship with the Ministry of Defense, the Diet's defense committees, the American alliance requirements, all of these create accountability mechanisms that make falsifying readiness a career-ending act rather than a survival requirement. This sounds simple. It is not. Honest reporting requires a culture that rewards honesty and does not punish the messenger. Building that culture took decades and is still imperfect. But it exists. You write the honest report, you submit it, the system processes it, nothing disappears. Level 9, the General Officer, Rikusho. You are Rikushoho, Brigadier General, then Major General, then Lieutenant General. You have arrived at the rank where strategy replaces operations and politics replaces management. You attend the National Security Council's consultation meetings. You coordinate with the Chief of Staff of the Japan Air Self-Defense Force and the Maritime Self-Defense Force. The 3 branches of the JSDF have historically operated with significant independence from each other, a structural legacy that recent reform efforts have worked to correct. In 2024, Japan established a new Joint Operational Command structure, the first time the 3 JSDF branches were placed under unified operational command. You were present in those planning meetings. You know what that reform cost in institutional negotiation. You know whose priorities were overruled and whose careers quietly plateaued as a result. You understand now that military leadership at this level is primarily the management of competing institutions, competing personalities, competing bureaucratic imperatives, all pointed nominally in the same direction but operated by humans who have their own histories and their own ambitions. You meet with American Indopacom commanders twice yearly. You meet with Australian Defense Force generals. You meet with Filipino and South Korean counterparts in multilateral formats where the conversation is careful and the subtext is constant. The subtext is always China. The question that nobody states directly but every general in every room is calculating. If the situation in the Taiwan Strait becomes kinetic, what does Japan do? And how fast? And with what? And under whose authority? The answer is legally and politically complex in ways that operational planning cannot fully resolve. You plan anyway. You plan for scenarios that the lawyers will spend years arguing about while you execute them in days. This is the condition of your rank. You plan for wars the Constitution complicates, with equipment the budget is only now beginning to fund, alongside allies whose commitment is sincere but whose domestic politics are as complicated as your own. You go home at 2100 hours. Your spouse has left dinner in the refrigerator. Your children are asleep. You eat cold rice and read the intelligence brief for tomorrow's briefing. You are very good at your job. You are not certain anyone is. Level 10. The cycle. The Chief of Staff of the Ground Self-Defense Force is appointed by the Prime Minister on the recommendation of the Minister of Defense. He serves a fixed term. He is a general. His function is to translate political intent into operational reality, which is a diplomatic way of saying that he receives orders from civilians who have rarely served, and he converts those orders into things that soldiers, sailors, and airmen can actually execute on the ground. He will be replaced. His successor is already a lieutenant general somewhere in this structure, attending meetings, submitting reports. managing competing priorities, taking notes at consultations with American officers in Carlisle or Camp Zama or Yokosuka. And right now, somewhere in Sapporo or Naha or Kumamoto, an 18-year-old is sitting in front of a JSDF recruitment officer. He has graduated from high school. He does not have strong family connections to guide him toward a corporate career. He has watched videos online about JSDF equipment. He has seen footage of soldiers rappelling from helicopters and conducting amphibious landings and joint exercises with the Americans. He finds it interesting in the way that young men find competent, physical, purposeful activity interesting. He does not know that the force he is joining is in the middle of the most significant transformation in its 70-year history. He does not know that the defense budget doubling underway will reshape every career path for every person who enters the force in the next decade. He does not know about the discussions in government about whether Article 9 needs to be formally amended, or about the new counterstrike capability program that has quietly shifted Japan from a purely reactive defense posture to something more complicated. He fills out the application form. He takes the entrance exam. He passes. He arrives at a training camp. The sergeant shouts his name before he finishes setting down his bag. He will be cold and tired and hungry in the right amounts and pushed past every limit he thought he had. And he will discover things about what he is capable of that he could not have found anywhere else. He will defend an island nation that cannot call what he does war, using skills that only make sense if war is what he is preparing for. He will serve in a force that the Constitution calls something other than what it is, in a country that wants peace more than almost any other on Earth, precisely because it remembers what the alternative looks like. He boards the truck. He rides toward the base. The cycle continues. It has been continuing since 1954. The question is not whether it will end. The question is what the world will look like when it does.